What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss some final iOS 17 features and changes, a crazy AirTag story, and more. This week's going to be a little bit shorter than normal just because of everything else going on in the world of Apple right now. But anyways, if you want to stay updated with everything in the world of Apple, along with coverage on the iPhone 15 and iOS 17, make sure to get subscribed if you're not already. All right, so let's talk about these final iOS 17 features and changes. And the first thing I want to talk about is something I've been experimenting with ever since the RC. And if we go into the camera and go to the photo section, take a look up in the top right. You will see we have a new little toggle there for HEIF Max. And if you tap on that, it will enable it. If you tap and hold, you'll be able to choose between RAW, RAW Max, or HEIF Max. And this allows you to shoot, the HEIF Max allows you to shoot in 48 megapixels without taking up as much space as 48 megapixels took previously, because before iOS 17, we would have to shoot in RAW to get the full 48 megapixel resolution, but now we don't need to, and it's in HEIF, which is only like 5 megabytes. So if you go into your settings here and then go to the camera section and then to formats, you will see that under photo capture, we have the Pro default right here. If you go into that, you will see that the HEIF only takes up 5 megabytes, whereas the Pro RAW takes up 75 megabytes per photo. That is a massive difference. And I tested this out, and we're going to take a look at some photos I took real quick. So here's the 12 megapixel shot, and you can see when I zoom in on the camera lens there, you can see a little bit of distortion. And then here is the 48 megapixel shot. You can see it's much more clear when you zoom in, of course, because we have more megapixels. That's obvious, but it's the fact that, you know, it looks exactly like a Pro RAW image, but it's like a fraction of the size at only 5 megabytes. Now this one right here was 40 or 3.3 megabytes, so less than 5 megabytes. You know, it can be potentially a little bit more than 5, but usually it's going to be under 5 megabytes per shot, and you get that awesome 48 megapixel quality. So this is a big improvement. But my favorite new camera feature that just got added in the RC build is the change to portrait mode. So there's a couple of changes here. First off, when you go to a portrait mode photo, you can see up in the top left, we have a new icon to the left of portrait right there, a new glyph icon. And now we can toggle on or off portrait mode without having to edit the photo itself. There's just a simple toggle right here where it says portrait on or portrait off, and then we have new glyph icons to the right of those options. Now, if we go into edit this portrait photo, you can see right away that we have this yellow square, and what that is it's outlining the subject, and we can change the subject now dynamically after the fact by just simply tapping anywhere on the screen. How cool is that? So you have a lot of flexibility with this. You can really make the subject anywhere, and you could see the bokeh adapting, the background blur adapting in real time as I touch the subjects. That is awesome. Also, the depth control is now down at the bottom, so we can change how much blur we want in the background. And there's a new option here as well where we can turn depth all the way off. Before, you could not turn it off from this little scroll wheel right here. So these portrait features are awesome. Now, we do not get the auto portrait mode where you can basically take a portrait shot when you're not even in the portrait mode. You can take it when in the regular camera mode. That looks like it's going to be an iPhone 15 exclusive. All iPhone 15 models are going to get that feature, but not the 14s. Now, if we head into the home application, we have some changes here as well. So I talked about this in my RC video, but if you go up to the top right underneath the plus icon, we have grid forecast. And this is awesome because this shows you when you're going to have clean energy, like at your house, when it's good to charge something like a car or, you know, run your AC, things like that. I don't really necessarily think you should base your entire, schedule around this, but it's good to know basically when you're going to have clean energy in the house. And you can see it fluctuates on a day-to-day basis. So I have this random little spike here right before 9 a.m. So I find this to be pretty accurate so far. It lines up with what I've seen for my, electric company when I go online and see, the off-peak hours. This lines up with that. So it seems to be pretty accurate. And I do actually have my notifications turned on my main phone for when we actually have clean energy here. And then, of course, the biggest surprise in iOS 17, really as a whole, but especially the fact that it came in the RC build, is the fact that we now have several new ringtones in iOS 17. Several, and these just got added with the RC build of iOS 17. So first off, if you go into ringtone, and I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of dark mode real quick, but if we go into ringtone, you can see we have tons of new ones here. I mean, almost everyone in here is new, including the default reflection ringtone. There's even a different tone to the default ringtone that we had in iOS 16, or going back years from now. Reflection has been there forever, but it sounds different now in iOS 17. So Apple is making big changes in this area, an area they've really neglected for many years now. And of course, if you want to hear all those, just go back and watch my RC video, or just wait for my iOS 17 What's New video on Monday. Also this week, we got the brand new AirPods update for all AirPods, including the AirPods Pro 2nd generation. And of course, the AirPods Pro 2 are going to get most of the new features with this update. So of course we have the adaptive sound control now, we have personalized volume, conversation awareness, and loud sound reduction. If you go into the control center and go to the volume toggle right here, you'll see that we have adaptive down there in the bottom left now, and you can change that between adaptive and then all the other modes, transparency and noise cancellation. So I've used the new noise control features, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it, especially conversation awareness. It's cool when it works, but I find it to be I just don't like my audio changing in my ears. So I'm not a huge fan of this feature. I'm pretty aware and I know when I should have my volume up or down, and I don't like this telling me when to do it. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is available now if you do have the AirPods. And of course, there are many other new features in iOS 17 as well. Apple actually put out a PDF guide showing like all the new features in iOS 17. So, I'll leave that link down below if you want to read it, but it's pretty boring. You may as well just wait for my video on Monday. So it's more entertaining than reading all that black and white text. But yeah, I have a ton of features to show you guys in that video. It's taken me so long to create. So I'm excited for you guys to see it. And I'll just give you a hint, it's a movie. It's like 2 hours long. Now, as far as the performance goes, I have to say that performance on the RC build is the best yet. Now, it's not a big difference. I don't want you thinking it's like night and day difference from beta 8, but I will say that the overall, I don't know what it is. I don't want to say smoothness because that's not really it, but I just don't have any hangups. I don't have any issues with notifications. Really nothing has gone wrong with the RC build of iOS 17. Now we do still have the most annoying bug right here, as you can see in the notification center. That bug is still there. It's going to be there forever for the rest of time. But aside from that, everything has been running just fine on the RC build of iOS 17. Really no complaints. I've had no crashes or anything. And that seems to be the, common trend with this RC build. A lot of you guys are saying the same thing. Now, when it comes to battery life, here's an area where I really expected the battery life to improve because, of course, we don't have any more feedback application on our home screens. We don't have all that background logging for, all the beta testing stuff going on the back end. In theory, the battery life should be better because of that, but I honestly have not noticed a big difference in battery life. So I'm going to grab my main phone here and take a look at my battery, and it's a little bit better maybe than beta 8, but I really have not noticed a big difference in battery life like I thought I would. But again, maybe I shouldn't keep thinking that because every year I think that when we get to RC, it's going to be better, and it just never really is. So you can see my last 24 hours didn't charge a ton. I actually did not charge it overnight, and we drained quite a bit overnight. So, I guess that was after I got up. But yeah, you can see it was not at full charge when I woke up. So that could be why it drained, by 2 p.m. But yeah, not really much shown there in the last 24 hours. But the last 10 days, you could see here again, pretty much at or over 100% every single day. And the activity, actually pretty high. So I did actually use my phone quite a bit this week, but still battery life did not impress me in the RC build. So like I said before, battery life's not bad. It's not terrible, but we're probably not going to see a boost until like 17.1 through 17.3. One of those, versions is when we'll finally see a bump in battery life, in my opinion. All right, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next week, of course, is going to be the big week. So September 18th, Monday, is going to be when we're going to see iOS 17, iPadOS 17, watchOS 10, tvOS 17, all the other software aside from macOS Sonoma. macOS Sonoma is coming out the following week on the 26th. So we can expect that in the coming weeks. Now, I would also expect to see a 17.1 beta 1 on most likely the 19th, most likely on Tuesday. Apple likes to release beta versions on Tuesday, and we usually see the first beta of a 0.1 within the next couple of days after the big release. So I would expect to see 17.1 beta 1 for sure next week, but it's most likely going to be on the 19th. And hopefully we get the Journal app and some of the other missing features in that version. Now, moving on to some of the latest iOS related news, I want to first talk about the Apple Card, because we now have a 10% back promo for gas and electric vehicle charging. So Apple is offering this promotion through October 5th, and you can find details in the daily cash section in your wallet application. Unfortunately, I do not have that. I looked everywhere in here. I just have this 6% daily cash at Nike and some of these other ads for referring friends and things like that. So unfortunately, I don't have this, but if you do have it, you're pretty lucky. 10% back on gas and EV charging is pretty solid. And speaking of the Apple Card, when Apple Savings launched earlier this year, and you might remember this, but when it launched earlier this year, a ton of users were complaining that there was a really long delay when trying to withdraw money from their accounts. Some people reported it took like a month to get their money out of the savings account that they have, through the Apple Card with Goldman Sachs. Well, now the information just put out a report, and it says that Apple and Goldman Sachs have now finally made changes to how these transactions are handled to avoid any type of delay going forward. So if you had that issue before and you were kind of put off by that, in theory now, you should not have those issues moving forward, and you should be able to get your money, within a couple of days from your savings account if you want to withdraw that. It looks like YouTube Music is going to be adding HomePod support soon. So this was found in the code of the YouTube Music application. Also this week, we saw the release of the Blackmagic Camera application. So this is a kind of pro level application if you are into photography and videography and you understand ISO, shutter speed, aperture, all that. You can adjust that easily in here along with many other pro level settings. It's a pretty cool alternative. If you use another one, I would give this a try. It is free to try out. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And just a heads up real quick, this is most likely going to be the last Apple Weekly series until October. I'm going to be so busy with all the iPhone 15 stuff, iOS 17 stuff, all of that. So I'm not going to really have time for these Apple Weekly episodes. And plus, all the news headlines are pretty much going to be based around the new products anyway. So I don't think you're going to miss much, but I will return with Apple Weekly in October at some point. So just keep that in mind. And today, again, all the news this week was about the iPhone 15, but I didn't want to just include nothing in this episode. I do want to give you a crazy AirTag story because it would not be Apple Weekly without a crazy AirTag story. So this time it's about a South Carolina teenager who is a US time trial champion for cycling. So he has to fly to other countries for competitions. And recently he flew to France, and as usual, his bike flies with him. But this time, things didn't go according to plan because, well, he was flying United. We know how the stories go with losing stuff in United Airlines. But anyways, he was flying back from France and he had a connecting flight in Brussels. So when he landed all the way back in the US in South Carolina, he quickly realized that his pride and joy was missing. His $12,000 bike was not on the plane when he got back to South Carolina. His dad said this: "The bike is worth $12,000. It's a team bike, but it's the principle, and it was specific for him with measurements for his riding style. Also, he needs it to train. He has an event in Vermont in a couple of weeks." So anyway, as anybody would do, they contacted United, who told them, based on our records, Brussels Airlines has the bike. So he did have that layover in Brussels, and it looks like it got stuck there. But when the dad of the teen contacted Brussels Airlines, they said, quote, "United booked your ticket. We're not going to talk to you." So days went by, and after contacting both airlines multiple times, they decided to contact the Brussels airport yet again. At first, they got the standard answers, but after many tries and talking to different customer service reps, they finally got a decent response from a customer care agent at Brussels. So this lady asked for a description and a photo of the bag that the bike was in, but the dad and the teen had something better. They had the exact location thanks to an AirTag inside of the bag. So less than an hour later, after sending that to the customer service rep, they found the bike bag, and when checking the AirTag location, the dad noticed that it was already in transit after less than an hour of showing them this information. That is crazy. And without the AirTag, again, who knows what would have happened with this bike? I mean, it's very possible that this could have just been stranded and, potentially thrown away or donated. I don't know what they do with lost luggage, but it seems like without this AirTag, this just would have been a lost cause and, $12,000 out the window. But anyways, guys, there you have it. This is probably the shortest Apple Weekly in quite some time, if not ever, but that's because, again, there's so much going on behind the scenes and there wasn't really much to talk about this week aside from the upcoming iOS 17 and iPhone 15. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, I will be back with Apple Weekly in October. So, I'll have a lot of videos here on the channel to make up for that. Trust me, you'll enjoy the coverage that I have here on the channel. You won't miss Apple Weekly too much, but it'll be back in no time. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.